Good morning and welcome. Welcome, dear friends, to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. My name is Barbara Rosen, and I serve on our Board of Trustees, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. I use the pronouns she, hers, and I'm a short white woman with white hair, green eyes, and wear glasses, but only if I read. We want to acknowledge that here at this church, we are on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. We are a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you this morning. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. This is an active church, and everyone is invited to participate in any of our activities. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, UUCTS.org, or we'd be happy to talk with you during the coffee hour. Our children and youth are with us during the beginning of the service, and we have faith formation programming available with our gifted leader, Jami, Cruz. Children gather for their time together with her after the story. If you'd like more information about our programming, please contact Reverend Kristina or see Jami after the service. For those present with us in the building, we have connection cards available in the pews near the hymnals. If you fill one out and put it in the offering plate or give it to one of our greeters, we'll be able to keep in touch with you. If you're watching us on Zoom or YouTube, you can send us an email at members@uutarpon.org to get connected. There are also small cards to write any joys or concerns that you would like to share with us if you prefer doing it in writing. We're delighted to have Reverend Kristina Spaude leading our service today. Resist. Music is provided by our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst, and our choir. Our opening hymn this morning is Jesus Christ is Risen Today, number 268 in the gray hymnal. Again, welcome.
And if you would like to stand, please do. And we are going to be singing verses 1, 2, and 3.
Hallelujah. I am the Reverend Kristina Spaude. I use she, her pronouns and am a white woman. I have chin-length curly brown hair, parted on one side with blue eyes. Our opening words call to worship this morning. It was here. Morning had finally begun its ascent over the horizon. The three Marys got up and collected their spices, supplies, oils, then made their way to the tomb. They were quiet, afraid, solemn. 3 days of crying had taken its toll. As they caught sight of the tomb, their stomachs dropped, their fear heightened. What had happened? Would they be seen? Quickly, they moved to where the stone had been rolled back from the cave. Inside they went, their eyes adjusting to the darkness. Panic emerged as they realized their teacher was not there. Who could have possibly done such a terrible thing? Suddenly, a brightness before them and a voice that spoke, "Do not be afraid." "Are you kidding me?" The voice continued, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? Go and tell, and go to Galilee. He will be waiting." The women trembled and looked at each other. Was this happening? Women were never invited to be disciples or to be in the inner circle. Would anyone even believe them? So struck were they that they didn't reflect on the beauty of how Jesus had been brought into the world by the lowest, and now the news of his resurrection would be brought into the world by the lowest. But they hurried away, afraid, anxious, stirred. No matter what, they would tell all who would listen. Jesus taught to love our neighbors, to act justly, to heal those in need of healing, and we all need some healing. Jesus' life was a testimony to resistance. The truth that there is life beyond the lies empire used to help people subjugate themselves, that salvation and wholeness are possible in this life. Jesus reminded us of the importance of making space for the sacred in our lives. Jesus taught that the remedy for empire is life. Even in death, he was preaching and teaching about all things being made new. This truth anointing the mouths of those charged with sharing the good news. Our question today is, in light of all of this, how now will we live? Come, let us worship together.
We light our chalice with these words from Albert Schweitzer. They're number 447 in the gray hymnal. At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted our way. We'll now sing Spirit of Life, number 123 in the gray hymnal.
Our story today is Petuk, written by Carol Hauslander and illustrated by the incomparable Tommy DePaola. It was a lovely warm day. The sky was bright blue and the clouds white and thick like balls of cotton wool. Everything seemed full of color, big, happy colors like those in a painting book. Even the maize in the bowls was yellower than usual. Petuk was happy. He had reason to be. He was a fine rooster with snowy white plumage and a red comb that positively glowed in the sun. And today, he had become the father of 12 little chicks. He thought that there were no chicks like them, none so round, so yellow, so fluffy, so bright-eyed. As for his wife, Martha, the brown speckled hen, plain and homely soul though she was, she had become all grand and important. During the past weeks, Petuk had sometimes felt a little impatient. It seemed like Martha had some secret that he did not share. It made her very happy, but it also made her look almost smug, and it annoyed Petuk to be outside of it. Martha had just sat on the eggs with a tiny smile on her face and her eyes nearly shut, as if she were looking into herself at a ball of light that was growing inside. Not talking, not moving, only making a funny little sound of happiness in her throat now and then. But now Petuk understood. It was he who was smiling, and so bursting with pride and joy that he could not speak. Petuk was sitting on the wooden gatepost dreaming of his family when a group of hens ran up to him. "Come," they clucked. "Some stranger has been walking through the vineyard." Petuk, who was as inquisitive as any hen, though he would not have liked it to be known, got up at once and hurried off with the others. Sure enough, there was on the dewy grass beneath the vines the impressions of a child's feet. They were set in a straight line toward Jerusalem. But Petuk knew that between the vine and the road to Jerusalem was the chicken run, and Martha and the children. He began to fly in short, violent bursts of flight back to his family. All the way he was saying to himself, "I am sure they were a boy's footsteps, and children can sometimes be careless even when they're not cruel. He might tread on one of the chicks." Petuk could see that some of the fruit fallen under the vines had been trodden and crushed. When he got to Martha, he knew he need not have been afraid. It is true that there was a boy there, but this boy was kneeling by the little brown hen with a look of wonder on his face, quite spellbound by the lovely sight of Martha gathering the chicks under her wings. His hands, which were thin and golden colored, were spread out like protecting wings over Martha. His lips slightly parted, his eyes shining. So rapt was he that Petuk thought, it must be the first time that he has seen a hen gathering her chicks. For Martha, prouder than ever, was clucking softly and pushing the little ones in under her wings. Petuk preened himself. He strutted up and down and round and round. He noticed every detail of the day, just as people notice every detail in a picture if it is rare and lovely, and one which they may not see again. He noticed how strong-looking the slim hands were, that the child's garment was woven without a seam, and that the sandaled feet were stained with the splashes of juice by treading on fruit fallen from the vine. Suddenly, for sheer joy, Petuk lifted his head and crowed. Years had gone by, and Petuk was quite old. He had just passed through an uneasy night. Everything had been steeped in moonlight, but all looked sad and strange. He could see the distant hill of cavalry where the 3 tall trunks always stood. Only when someone was to die did the trunks become crosses, for then the poor person brought the beam that was fastened across the trunks for him to hang in. By getting on top of the dovecot and stretching his neck, Petuk could just see the trunks as dark bars on the shining sky. It seemed as if morning would never come. Martha was puffed out, sleeping on her eggs, and there was no one to talk to. The moonlight made long black shadows on the grass, and the grass was like pale green water. But suddenly there came a break in the day and the sky, and like a red wound, morning came. And suddenly Petuk cried out loud and long, for he felt somehow excited and lifted up. He could not tell why. All day long he kept running to the dovecot and looking as if a spell were on him at the trunks. At about midday, or maybe a little later, Petuk saw that there was a little smudge on top of the hill, which must be people. And then the crossbeam went up. When he saw it, he slowly opened his wings, for to him the cross looked just like that, like the opening of great wings. Of course, he did not know who was being lifted up there. He did not know that it was the lovely little boy, or that the little boy had remembered Martha and the chicks years after and had said to hard-hearted men, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often would I have gathered you under my wings as the hen gathers her chicks, and you would not." It was 3 days later, a morning cloaked with sunlight as with a garment of golden gossamer. Petuk's dark mood had changed. He had a feeling of certainty that Martha's chicks would come out of the eggs today. It would be dawn in a few minutes, and the chicks would come. He was sure of it. There was a soft step on the grass. It was the farmer's wife. She loved the fowls, and they trusted her. Now she knelt down by Martha, and Martha did not open her eyes, but made a soft gurgle of greeting in her throat. The woman put her hand gently under the hen's breast and drew out an egg. It was a lovely egg, a soft golden pink color, and it lay in the palm of the kind hand, warm and beautiful. The woman put the egg back, and then she leaned down. She was listening. Petuk was listening too. So were the blades of grass and the drops of dew on them. So were the leaves on the trees and the stars that lingered still in the sky. The world was listening. Petuk knew that. All the winds held their breath. The trees were held in silence. Every flower and leaf and bird was still. It was so quiet, Petuk heard the chicks in the eggs tapping softly with their beaks to get out. Yes, Petuk heard that, and he heard life everywhere, tapping softly, knocking softly to get out, to come out of the dark into the day, out of silence into sound, out of death into life, bird and beast and seed in the earth and bud on the tree. Petuk heard all that when the chicks tapped to get out. And suddenly one of them came, a struggling splutter of gold fluff. The woman laughed, and the sky broke into a splendor of light. Petuk threw back his head and crowed and crowed and crowed. His red comb burned in glory. The white feathers in his plumage dazzled in the light. The new chick danced at his feet. He crowed again and again and again. It was Easter morning. And now we will sing the children to their programming. And as we do so, we will light this candle to send them with the love and light of this community. We will sing hymn number 413 in the gray hymnal, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is the time in our service where we take our offering for the work and welfare of this church. Ours is a free faith which must sustain itself financially. Please go to our website, uutarpon.org, and click on the Donate button, or you may mail your offering to the church at 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. For those of you with us in person in the sanctuary, place your offering in the offering plates as they are passed. The next piece of music is Rise Again with the choir.
When the waves roll on over the waters and the ocean cries, we look to our sons and daughters to explain our lives. As if a child could tell us why, that as sure as the sun rises, as sure as the sea
waters of creation, across a stormy sky, we look to reincarnation to explain our lives, as if a charm could tell us why, that as sure as the sunrise, as sure as the sea, as sure as the wind in the trees, we rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. We rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. And then we rise
We will now hold a brief moment of silence, settling into yourselves and your seats, taking a few deep breaths deep into your belly if you are comfortable to do so. Our reading today comes from Wendell Berry. This is Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front, which is now 50 years old. Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay. Want more of everything ready-made. Be afraid to know your neighbors and to die, and you will have a window in your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer. When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So, friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord. Love the world. Work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance, for that which man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have been rotted into mold. Call that prophet. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are yet to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. So long as women do not go cheap for power, please women more than men. Ask yourself, will this satisfy a woman satisfied to bear a child? Will this disturb the sleep of a woman near to giving birth? Go with your love to the fields. Lie down in the shade. Rest your head in their lap. Swear allegiance to what is nighest your thoughts. As soon as the generals and politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you didn't go. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the
By many markers, I was a typical kid. I changed my mind about what I wanted to be when I grew up a bunch of times. Surprise, minister was never on the list. I had amazing friends, got good grades, started working when I was old enough, played sports for a while. By other markers, I was absolutely not a typical kid. I didn't learn how to drive until my senior year of college, for example. My formative years into college were difficult ones. Looking back, I would say that I have always been seeking a life of meaning. I remember once talking with my dad about some work that Amnesty International was doing. He didn't approve of their methods, but I was quietly captivated by the people who believed so passionately in justice that they were willing to die for it. That was who I wanted to be. Anais Nin wrote, "I must be a mermaid. I have no fear of depth and a great fear of shallow living." And it has always resonated with me. Things continued on in my life, and I struggled and succeeded, going to school full-time and working increasingly to full-time through college and grad school and more college, and eventually life caught up with me. It was still dark that day, January 1st, when I awoke, probably more a reflection of the winter and being in Northeast Ohio than anything else. But when my brain flipped on light and I thought, your life is a mess and you need to take responsibility for it. I've always been a highly intuitive person, and so I set about figuring out what that meant. Not the mess part. That part was obvious. But the taking responsibility. As a society, we are taught to have responsibilities: a home, a car, a family, a job, and on and on. But we are not taught well to take responsibility or to be accountable. The individualism that is so lauded as the American dream also eats our roots and keeps them from growing. We believe we only have to be responsible to ourselves and to that which we hope we will gain from. But that is shallow living and would not offer salve for my aches and sorrows. I scheduled a doctor's appointment and began what would become a committed pursuit to living with integrity and wellness. 6 weeks after my awakening, I was off to Russia for a semester. It was a time of great growth, although not so much in my proficiency of the Russian language. When I returned, I was more grounded than I'd probably ever been as I journaled through personal struggles and awarenesses. I met someone when I returned who also seemed on this journey. It was with him that I found a community of depth, honest searching and healing, people taking responsibility for their actions, past and present, holding and being held accountable, being honest and vulnerable as if their lives depended on it because they recognized that they did. People who wanted to bring healing into their own and others' lives. They created a community of trust and strength and care. This community that I never really belonged to, even as an outsider, held me as I grieved the challenges of my life, the losses, the hardships. They held me and gave me hope. Another way was possible. All I had to do was give up everything I'd ever known and start anew. Week after week, they showed me and each other that it could be done. Their work, their existence was countercultural. They would not have said so, but they practiced resurrection. They reached out for one another, held one another, reached back for each other. They saved each other, resurrected each other. They knew they were each other's salvation. As a Mennonite colleague, Hugh Hollowell Jr., has said, God has a plan. That plan is us. They seemed to practice this philosophy. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? And one day I realized that as much as I loved them, as much as I had learned from them, not only about myself, but about being in relationship with others, about being welcoming, about the promise of searching for meaning, about the importance of clarity of purpose, living life in such a way that others want what you have, and so much more, that I needed to move on. 12-step meetings gave me life and helped me begin healing. But I needed to find my own community where I could share what I had been taught and grow in a new way. 2,000 years, give or take, before that remarkable day in my life, other women were waking up and waiting as the dawn finally creeped over the horizon. There was nothing that they could do but hold each other as they waited for this moment, having needed to not do anything for fear of breaking the Sabbath commandment. Even the task before them wasn't worth that. Their teacher had been known to work on the Sabbath, which caused him trouble, and they were already afraid for their lives. But their teacher had taught them so much. His practice was an invitation to people who wanted to live a more meaningful life now. So many were working hard, like his own father had, just to get by. They walked many hours to find and do work, then turn around and walk home. Though he was gone now, they would carry what he had taught them, bringing new life to others, just as it had been given to them. Loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Jesus had known how hard life was for so many. Around the time of his birth, Caesar Augustus ruled and had brought in the Pax Romana, the peace of the Roman Empire. The words peace and empire used in conjunction then were just as disjointed as they are now. It was peace for the Roman citizens, military, and senators, maintained by the extensive military activity throughout the empire. And the so-called cost of this peace was high. Beyond the military presence, taxation for territories outside Rome was heavy. Jesus' birth narrative itself was a story of traveling to Bethlehem to be counted for the census, so that they could know what taxes they would need to pay. These taxes did in part pay for extensive construction, both in and beyond Rome, and there was relative stability and peace throughout the whole region. but it was a great toll for the people in the Roman territories. As a marginalized people within the empire, the Jews did not have an easy time. In the empire's territories, the military was often swift to act against any threats to the empire, no matter how small. They were also not afraid to act harshly as a means to keep more people in line. This is the context in which Jesus' ministry emerges, one of physical hardship and oppression. There were many Jewish sects at the time, just as we have many Christian sects today. And so we cannot paint a broad brush about all things Jewish. But we do know that many people tried to follow the laws of the Torah as best they could, and heaven knows there were a lot of them. One might say that the Bible is a collection of narratives about how people struggle to be with each other and to be in relationship with God. God repeatedly made covenants with the Israelites, the Jews, who repeatedly broke the covenants, resulting in acts like the flood that wiped out all life from Earth's land, save the animals on Noah's ark, and the destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. In turn, we might say that some Jewish religious leaders believed that if they could capture all the rules to honor what God asked of them, so that God would be pleased with them, they would, and they wrote them all down. There were rules for everything. One of the things that Jesus taught was that following the rules wasn't enough to have a meaningful life, or most importantly, to love your neighbor. Jesus inspired a more heart-centered approach to the laws. For him, they helped give a framework for what is expected and what should be done. But as we can see throughout the Christian scriptures, Jesus teaches that there's wisdom beyond the letter of the law. As Jesus reminds the people over and over, our responsibility is to love our neighbors, all of them. That is how we will find healing and wholeness, by reaching for each other, because God's plan is us. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? It is through his preaching and teaching of the Hebrew scriptures that people begin to realize the possibility of more, that life isn't just about getting by. He shows there's another way of living. It is the opposite of what empire asks of them, which is to work, to pay taxes, to procreate, and to follow empire law. In Luke, there's the well-known passage where people who are trying to trip Jesus up ask him if it is lawful to pay taxes to the emperor. Jesus asks to see a coin which bears the image of the emperor, and he replies, "Then give to the emperor what is the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." This is often mistaken as a dichotomizing of church and state that each should be given to in turn. In fact, Jesus is demonstrating that the coin is a product of the empire and symbolic of an earthly existence in relationship with it. So if the coin bears the emperor's image, the coins already belong to him. What then might belong to God? Where is God's image to be found? On the hearts and the spirits of their people. Those are to be turned to and returned to God. In so doing, we will be made anew when we do the work to make it so. Jesus couldn't go anywhere without being followed by people who wanted or needed his help. As he became more known, the crowds went from a dozen or two to scores, to hundreds, to thousands, people in need of healing and care. The demands on him were great. And so he does what he has been taught to do, offer healing to everyone. He heals those in great need, in earnest need, in need by proxy, and offers emotional and spiritual healing to those in need by helping them work it out for themselves. They reach for him, and he reaches back. And then he takes breaks. Loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Jesus' life and work was to resist empire so that people could see that they could have a life that felt worth living. There was, of course, an interest in having an eternal afterlife of reward, but the idea in Matthew of fishers becoming men, what good are converts if their lives are empty? And how could you convert anyone if your own life is empty? Jesus is offering them meaning, healing even, the very thing the Roman Empire with its bread and circus practices doesn't want for people to have in their lives. Those who have lives of meaning and healing are dangerous because they will not settle for the distractions the empire offers. Jesus was dangerous to the empire because he canceled their strategy to keep people complacent and participants in their own oppression. By encouraging people to live a different kind of life, journeying toward wholeness and healing in their lives, in their communities, they were encouraged to explore their own depths, and in so doing, recognize their own power and possibility, the very essence of what it means to be human, the realization that we are each other's salvation, that we are the plan. Jesus, given all the power a person can have in this earthly realm, turned and washed others' feet and offered healing to many of the people he encountered. He sought out the lowest of the low, the sex workers, the diseased, those who the empire said were different and less than, and he ate and drank with them, healed them, loved them. Jesus taught that joy is resistance, rest is resistance, art is resistance, living is resistance, laughter is resistance, integrity is resistance, commitment to our faith is resistance, community is resistance, social justice is resistance, thriving is resistance, play is resistance, peace is resistance, healing is resistance, reconciliation is resistance, simplicity is resistance, generosity is resistance, practicing abundance is resistance, creativity is resistance, directing our energy elsewhere is resistance, diversity is resistance, liberation is resistance, resurrection is resistance, hope is resistance. Jesus was executed by the state. He was an instigator, a political leader. To assume this was the sole reason for his death is to miss the point. He was killed because he was a threat to empire, because he was these things, because he was a healer, a teacher, someone who practiced living as if the beloved community already existed. If you have doubts, let me assure you that today, Black, Indigenous, queer, disabled, joy, art, play, peace, healing, thriving, hope are indeed acts of resistance, and so they are deeply political acts. That kind of power comes only from within, and the only way to take it is to kill it. Given all this, we might ask ourselves if in our daily living we are serving life or empire. When you speak, is your mouth anointed with the truth and the good news of hope, healing, and love? In times of difficulty, do you reach your arms around yourself, or do you reach out for others? How might we practice resurrection? Because the living are not meant to be found among the dead. And so the question again, in light of all this, how now will we live? If you would please rise and join me in singing our closing hymn, number 368 in the gray hymnal. Now let us sing.
While the choir is making their way up here, I will be playing through the songs, and you can choose part 1 or part 2. Part 1 begins, or part 2 begins.
Sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the love within. Sing to the power of the love within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the love within. Sing to the power of the joy within. Sing to the power of the joy within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the joy within.
In The Gift of Faith, Jean Harrison Newyar has written, in the lore of ancient China, there's a story of a philosopher who was asked, "Where is the road called hope?" He replied, "It does not exist, but as people move forward upon it, it comes into being." I invite you to continue moving forward on this path, this journey of hope and healing with me.
Break forth into joy, sing together, lift your voices in harmony. into joy. Sing together, lift your voices in harmony. Come rejoice in the joy of creation. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Celebrate the jubilant sound, the glories of nature above. Rejoice into joy, sing together, lift your voices in harmony. Come rejoice in the joy of creation. Alleluia, 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 alleluia,
We hope that you found meaning in today's service. We close with these words from Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry these in our hearts until we